the news.
Three people have died in a fire in central Athens after protesters marching against austerity measures threw petrol bombs into a local bank branch. It's the worst violence to hit the country since riots in 2008. Initially, the day of action against the government was mostly peaceful, with a large crowd estimated at 40,000 gathering in front of Parliament and only small groups throwing stones and batons at police who responded with tear gas. But when the big crowd broke up, small groups then went on the rampage in several different locations, including the bank. Running battles broke out along Athens' wider thoroughfares, with extra police being drafted in as they were put on a state of alert. The police now say the situation is slowly returning to calm, and the public and private sector unions have reportedly called off their general strike out of respect to the victims. The Greek parliament, which was debating the austerity package as the violence raged outside, also held 1 minute's silence and condemned the loss of life.
As violence raged in Greece's cities, anger at the government's tough austerity measures also saw a mass walkout by workers. Public transport ground to a standstill, forcing many to take alternative, often more expensive means to get to work. Even Greece's tourist hotspots fell a cropper to the general strike, with many of Athens' ancient sites shut. A letdown for holidaymakers.
I'm disappointed because it affected my trip. If they would have opened the Acropolis and not charged, then the government would have hurt because they wouldn't get the income. So that would have been another way of doing it.
Flights to and from Greece were also grounded by the mayhem, stranding many wishing to get away. Some travellers, however, remained philosophical.
I'm going to go hang out on the beach for 2 days until I can get a flight back out. So.
The general strike, the third this year, also paralysed ports. Misery for many, but an opportunity for others.
Trying to get the German parliament to back an international rescue plan for debt-stricken Greece, Chancellor Angela Merkel has warned Europe's future is at stake. She said the aid package must succeed, or the problem would spill over onto other Eurozone countries. She also suggested there should be a kind of bankruptcy protection procedure set up, whereby, in an emergency, a country could freeze repayment of its debts while restructuring. German lawmakers vote on whether to support the Greek rescue package on Friday. Some have criticised Merkel for delaying the vote for domestic political reasons. Claudia Roth of the Greens said, "I don't support those who are being anti-Greece in this because they have not understood that Germany is one of those countries which benefited most from the EU." After the vote in Parliament, a group of economists plan a legal challenge to Germany's participation in the Greek bailout. One of them, Wilhelm Henkel, says it sets a terrible precedent. It's not just about one country. After Greece, there's Portugal, then there's Spain, then there's Ireland. I added up how much the amount would be that just that group of countries might need, and it's more than 2 trillion euros. Europe cannot afford this, and our taxpayers are not able to pay this. Spain has already had to deny a rumour that it was looking to borrow billions from the EU. The country's deputy prime minister stressed Spain's public sector debt is 20% less than the European average. In Spain, we have no fear of this type of contagion. She said Spain has always met its commitments. But the financial markets in Spain and Portugal continue to slump. They're seen as the next 2 targets for investors, testing the EU's will and ability to defend weak Eurozone economies. The issue of Greece's debt continues to hit financial markets worldwide. Wall Street slumped from the opening bell. The markets are clearly unimpressed with the aid package agreed for Greece over the weekend by the European Union and International Monetary Fund. They're sceptical that Athens can deliver on its promises of tough austerity measures. Good news was ignored by investors, including word that private employers in the United States hired more people in April. Instead, they're focusing on the sovereign debt crisis and its potential to spread. All the European bourses are down, with Madrid and Lisbon having lost 3%. Policymakers, including IMF chief Dominic Strauss-Kahn and the European Central Bank's Axel Weber, warned of the dangers of contagion to other high-debt Eurozone nations. And the euro, which yesterday suffered its steepest one-day loss since last June, notched up another one-year low at just over $1.28.
All flights in and out of Dublin Airport have been halted once again because of the volcanic ash cloud drifting from Iceland. It follows similar travel chaos in the Irish capital yesterday. Airspace over Scotland and Northern Ireland has also been shut, and other hubs in the northwest of England and Wales could be affected as the fresh plume moves south. With the situation changing hourly, passengers are being advised to check before travelling. The Irish Aviation Authority said there were no restrictions on Shannon Airport in the west of Ireland. The latest travel chaos is being blamed on the same Icelandic volcano that disrupted European flights for 6 days last month. It caused misery for thousands of stranded passengers and cost airlines millions in lost revenue.
It's the final full day of campaigning before the UK general election, and all three party leaders have been capitalising on the time they have left. Prime Minister Gordon Brown campaigned late into the night, speaking to steelworkers in Sheffield in the north of England, before rising early this morning to meet market workers. Conservative leader David Cameron kept going through the night. Also staying in the north, he talked to supermarket staff in Grimsby, saying it's the most important election for a generation and he didn't want to waste any of the last hours. He also went to Northern Ireland. Liberal Democrat leader Nick Clegg retired early last night, but he held a rally in the south-east of England this morning. Here he urged people to change Britain forever by voting Lib Dem. Recent polls show a third of voters are still undecided. Following the polls can be a very confusing way of gauging support for the main parties in Britain's general election. They all give different percentages to the Conservatives, Labour and Liberal Democrats, and none of them points to a clear winner. Euronews reporter Isabel Kumar's been on the streets of London to see if she can get a clearer picture.
I'm pretty disgusted with all of them, really. I think give one of the lesser parties a chance. We've heard all the promises, and I go back a long way. Harold Wilson's day, and I'm fed up with a lot of them. Lying, cheating rogues, full stop.
I'm voting for David Cameron because I think he's very active. He's very, he seems to be doing a lot. He's very smart, and I like the way he speaks. So.
Confusing. Not sure about the truth that they're all telling, so I'll probably make my mind up tonight when I'm asleep.
For people here, it's business as usual, but decision time is looming, and so is the very real possibility of a hung parliament. And while there's debate as to who will win or lose, there's also questions over how a subsequent government will be formed, and for Europe and beyond, how credible such a government would be. Isabel Kumar, Euronews, London.
Dressed as St George, it's just another day on the campaign trail for this British National Party candidate. Of all the UK's smaller political parties, the far-right BNP tends to attract the most headlines. Led by Nick Griffin, the BNP wants British citizens of foreign descent to go back to their lands of ethnic origin and is calling for a complete halt to immigration.
Immigration, our policy is what the voters want to hear. It's quite simply, Britain's full, it's time to shut the door. Doesn't matter whether people are black or brown, green or white, Britain's full, should stop.
Vilified by many, the BNP isn't afraid of using strong rhetoric to get its message across, a strategy which seems to have worked.
And they're going to chase these pigs out.
The party gained a national platform for the first time last year when it won 2 seats in the European Parliament. It doesn't have any seats in the UK government, and opponents are determined to keep it that way.
Overwhelmingly is directed against people.
This video is about hope not hate and aims to persuade disillusioned voters not to turn to the far right. Significantly more moderate but still right of centre is the UK Independence Party. UKIP is determined to keep Britain out of the European Union, although has 13 seats in the European Parliament. UKIP MEP Nigel Farage already has a reputation as a bit of a bruiser in Brussels after this run-in with the President of the European Council.
Be rude, but you know, really, you have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk.
UKIP hopes to repeat its European election success in the British election.